Match Madness. This is the game that we're going to be building. And I wanted to show how to make a traditional match game, such as if you wanted to make it for children, for example, making a kids game. But I also wanted to put in some extra features to give you some ideas of how we can take a traditional game and make it challenging. It starts out as a traditional match game. But as we go on, if you notice, there's a bomb. We got to remember where the bomb is and not to click it. Also, if you don't make a match, the tiles will swap places. So let's get started. Now, the first thing you'll need to make this course is the Ultimate Games Part template. And if you've been taking classes on here already, you've probably already are familiar with setting that up. If not, go over to the home page and you can find it right there, template setup free. And it is a very quick course on how to set it up, just 3 videos long. But it will save you a lot of time in making your games later. Now, to get started on this game, I've already got everything set up. I've got the local server running and I've got it open in my editor. And in the lesson resources, you'll find all the images that you'll need to make this game. Go ahead and download those and copy them into your images folder. And there's already a background there that comes with the template. Go ahead and replace that. That's no problem. And the first thing we want to do is preload those images so we can use them in our game. To do that, you'll need to go to this folder here, Scenes, and then Scene Load. And everything in the Scene Load folder is grouped into file types. For example, here is a PNG array. We have a bomb PNG and we have icons numbered 1 to 11 and a square PNG. And the background is a JPEG. So we can take care of that one first in the JPEG array, background. And here in the PNG array, we need bomb, square, and then 1 through 11. But if you don't want to type that out, you can probably just put it on a loop here. I equals 1 to 12, and then PNG array, push I. And as long as there's no errors in the console, we'll know it worked. And I misspelled square there. And everything's fine. So let's move on to the next part. Now that we've got the images loaded, let's change the background of the title screen. And that is under Scene Title here in the Scenes folder. And right now the background is set to Sky, which is an image that comes with the template. And we're going to change it to Background. So we just need to change the set background from Sky to Background. And then we could change this game title here, this text, to the name of our game, Match Madness. Let's go ahead and put in the background in scene main as well. This will be our main game scene. And we want it right after Super Create. Great. Now let's make some game pieces. Now, of course, you've noticed everything on the screen is divided up into squares. The reason for that is that everything on the template is done by a percentage of the height and width of the game. So if this grid were to go on an iPad, it would be a bigger size. And if it were to go on a small cheap phone, it would shrink to that size as well. But the important thing is that no matter where we put it on the grid, it will stay there no matter which device we have it on. For example, I'm just going to temporarily place the face on number 25. Misplace image, face, position 25, and 10% of the width of the game. Now, if I put it on an iPad, it still stays in the same place relative to everything else. If I were to put it on a very cheap phone, it's still in the same place relative to everything else. So the nice thing is, though, we don't have to just do this with the game screen. We can also do it to UI components like buttons and timers and message boxes and things of that nature. And that's what we're going to do next. I've put the browser back on desktop, and to save time, I'm going to go into Scene Load. I'm going to go down here to the bottom where it says Scene Title, and let's change that to Scene Main. And the reason we're doing that is if we do that, it won't show us the title screen, which we want for the final game. But for right now, when the screen refreshes, it'll be better if we go to just Scene Main so we can see the changes right away without having to go through the title screen. And let me go ahead and take that face off of there. And I'm going to comment out this line, which will not show the numbers because the numbers are just for debugging. Now, Scene Main extends Base Scene, and Base Scene has a lot of code in it to help set up the grid and graphics and scaling. But there's another class that is very similar, and it's called Base UI. Let me show you how to use it. I'm going to make a new file called matchtile.js, and let's write a new class matchtile and extend Base UI. Export class matchtile base UI. Then we need the constructor, and we need to call the super. Now we're going to pass a config object to this to set up some options, some parameters in here. And we'll just call that config, and we'll pass that config onto the super. And then we need to import the base UI into this class. The first thing I'm going to do is call a function in the base UI, and you can get into this code. It's just under common UI base UI, and you can look around to see what you can do in here. So the first thing I want to do is set the background. And I'm going to use that square that we had earlier that we loaded into the images. It's just a white square. And the reason I'm using white is that way we'll be able to tint it and change the color if we need to. So this set back square, and we can set a scale on that, and I'm going to make it 15% of the game's width. I'm going to go to Scene Main now, and let's import that tile. Import match tile / common UI match tile, and let test tile equal new match tile. And we're going to pass in one parameter to the config at the moment, which is simply scene, and the scene is this Scene Main. Let's have a look. And there it is up at the top, and it's got that white square in it. Now let me position that on the grid. We've turned the numbers off, but the grid's still there, and we can just say place at 5, 5, and test tile for the object, and that will put it in the middle of the screen. There. Now inside the match tile, let's call this function here that we usually do in Scene Main, set align grid, and we can set a number of columns and rows. This set align grid, and let's just make it a 3 by 3. Now normally we can call show numbers on this. If I say this a grid show numbers, which is something I do in Scene Main over here, and it turns on the grid, normally that would work. But because the match tile is being positioned after it's created, if you try it that way, you'll get the grid up here at the 0, 0 position. So what you can do over here at Scene Main, you can call test tile a grid show numbers. But before you do that, you have to call this one function in here called fix grid. It will align the grid's position to the piece's position. So test tile fix grid. And there it is. So now we can place things inside of here, and we're going to do that next.